Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar's topic is contact tracing, presented by Integra One in partnership with Aruba. My name is Kat Tuttle. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager over at Integra One. I'll be the woman behind the curtain today for the webinar. And just before we kick it off to our presenters, just going to do a really quick introduction on who Integra One is and what we do, for those of you who might be a little bit less familiar with us. So to start, you can see here kind of a listing of our solution areas, everything from IT infrastructure to security, managed services, and everything in between. For those of you who have worked with us in the past, I hope this will ring true for you. We really like to take an approach to business that is relationship oriented. We've been in business for about 30 years, and that's really the way that we do things. So, yep, as you can see here, been in business for 30 years. We have 5 local offices to make sure that we can really provide you that localized service in Pennsylvania: Allentown, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Wilkes-Barre, and Pittsburgh. And then over on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see some of the industries that we serve. It's not an exhaustive list, but you can see we really do kind of run the gamut there. And we have specialists who are, really savvy in those different areas. Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items before we dig into our topic. So firstly, you'll be receiving a post-webinar survey today. Don't worry, we won't keep you, up all hours of the night trying to fill out a 100, questionnaire. Really just a few questions to get some feedback on what you liked about today's webinar, what you might want to hear from us in the future, and also an opportunity to ask any additional questions to our presenters. Lastly, if you'd like to stay connected and keep up with any events and activities that we do have coming up, of course, in the circumstances today, we are doing more virtual activities and events. But there you have it, integra1.com/events to keep up with us and see, if there's something we are offering in the future that might be interesting. All right. One very exciting announcement that we have, again, before kicking over to our presenters, is that Integra One has recently been named Aruba's East Region Partner of the Year for 2020. We are so excited and really humbled by that award. So thank you to our partners over at Aruba. I think this definitely speaks to the strength of our partnership. And as you'll see today, Aruba is just such a wonderful partner and resource. And hopefully we will see that partnership strengthen and grow in the future. All right, that's it from me. I will quickly kick it over to our Aruba presenters today, Tom Sterlitsky and Eric Moore, who are both systems engineers. Again, a big thank you from me. The last note that I will make before Tom takes over here is the chat box. If you have any questions as we're going through the material of today's presentation, feel free to put those into the chat box on your GoToWebinar tool panel, which should appear on the right-hand side of your screen. Eric and Tom will take note of those questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thanks very much, everybody. Enjoy.
All right, thank you, Catherine. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today on this contact tracing webinar. My name is Tom Sterlitsky. I'm a local systems engineer with Aruba. And again, I'm joined by Eric Moore, another local systems engineer with Aruba Networks. Again, today's agenda is really all about contact tracing. So we're going to talk a little bit about the new challenges in the reimagined workplace, right? So what are things going to look like coming back to the office? What considerations are we hearing from customers that they're trying to overcome, and what challenges are out there? We're going to look at what Wi-Fi and Bluetooth contact tracing actually looks like. Aruba, as a company, has devoted a significant amount of resources to augmenting solutions that many of our customers already have to be able to take advantage of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth-based contact tracing. We'll touch a little bit on what third-party solutions are out there, both relevant to coming back to the workplace and around contact tracing. And questions and answers at the end. We'll chat with Eric here at the end and see if there are any questions in the chat that we would like to answer live. So with that, right, this hybrid workplace environment that we're in, right? So we have some new challenges that we've all kind of had to overcome here. I remember, visiting my last client on a Friday, and that Monday we were 100% remote. And every industry is going through that, education, higher ed, been private industry. So that instantaneous pivot from in-person to working from home. We've had a lot of growth in our edge. Normally your edge network is contained within your the four walls of your buildings, but that has really changed, right? We have everyone working remotely, so the solutions and the way that we were doing things when people were coming into the office on a regular basis have also had to pivot a bit. Our IT resources in many cases are not being augmented anymore, so we're having to relearn skills and try to navigate these waters with the resources that we have. What we're going to be focusing on a little bit today is how we're going to use our space for employee and student interactions, and how are we going to address concerns for employee and student safety. And lastly, everyone's feeling a certain amount of economic pressure. So what resources do we currently have that we can leverage to, again, help with decisions about space, help with employee safety, and really help out our IT folks. So as Aruba was going through this journey, talking to industry analysts, talking to our customer base, we've really coined this phrase, reimagined workplace, and we've kind of broken this into a three-phase process. So really today, we're kind of in that phase one, remote connectivity. How do we pivot to working from home? And many customers that I have are reanalyzing what the remote type solutions look like. In many cases, they were never really designed to scale to the volume that they have. So the longer that we're kind of in this work from home type of environment, organizations are really reevaluating that, and that's something that Aruba can certainly help you with. We have some very robust business continuity solutions. But then we also have phase two, and that's really where this presentation is going to be focused today, but is returning to school or returning to the office, right? How do we ensure that employees and students feel safe? How do we get data back from our network that helps us make business-related decisions and safety-related decisions? So contact tracing and social distancing, for instance. And then phase three, which is more of a TBD at this point, but how are we going to be revising our workplace and our school spaces long-term? How are we going to be changing our business plans moving forward over the next 18 plus months, right? So what's going to be a permanent change versus what's kind of a reactionary change today? So returning to the office, top priorities when we're talking to customers, really, again, establishing confidence that it's safe to come back to the office and that we have made necessary preparations to welcome back our students, faculty, and staff. But also, what can we leverage that's already installed, right? Contact tracing may be with us longer than we all want it to be, but is it going to be with us for the next decade, right? So how much are we going to invest in this infrastructure, and how are we going to actually do contact tracing? Security and privacy concerns are always there. No one really wants Big Brother watching them, so how are we going to address those? And then contact tracing for infected individuals and cleaning protocols. At this point, most customers I talk to, their staff and their students are somewhat worried about, coming back to the office and getting infected because we're now in a much more confined space. So what are we doing to address when we do have a COVID positive case? Because that's likely going to be a scenario that's going to happen. So, and again, just a few other questions that customers, have to think about. Should the worst happen and we do have a COVID positive, most people don't know where they were last Thursday at 11:45 and who they ran into, right? So we don't always necessarily keep a running tabulation of who we've met with. So understanding who people have come into contact with. I'm sure many of you are aware, the CDC has some guidelines out there, 6 feet, 15 minutes is what they're saying is an actionable contact. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear that that recommendation maybe change as time goes on. So we need a solution that can adapt to whatever the current pandemic related recommendations are in real time, as they may change. We also need to answer the question, how long did you come into contact with somebody? Where did you come into contact them with within your building? So that's really important, right? So that we know where to focus our cleaning efforts. Just to say that we were in a certain room, but what hallways did we use? What other areas of the building did we come into contact with, right? Again, not everybody has photographic memory to know exactly where they were, so that's kind of important. Answering some more policy-based questions around how you're opening your campus, but things like, did we reduce our occupancy enough? And not necessarily just our occupancy overall in a building. You know, some buildings, I'm sure that you have many thousand square feet, but did we reduce enough occupancy within certain sections of the building? You know, there's always the policy, and then there's always the actual, right? So this kind of gives us that actual snapshot of what happened from a policy standpoint in reality. And then, you know, are we really adhering to social distancing and, you know, again, clusters of individuals within a building? So these are just some other questions that customers have started to kind of ask as they're really thinking about reopening their facilities. But one of the key takeaways here, just to understand about contact tracing in general, is these IT-based solutions are really intended to augment the contact tracing process, right? They're really here to help jog the memory of the, you know, COVID positive case. They're not necessarily click a button, it alerts, you know, 100 people and you're done for the day, right? You still do need to interview these individuals. And this data, you know, is a subset of who they may have come into contact with, and then they can tell you, oh, yes, I did, or oh, no, I didn't, or I wasn't in that section of the building, those types of things. So I've had a lot of discussions with customers, and they vary on what they're looking for. So some customers are looking just merely for facility occupancy, right? Did we overall in a building reduce our occupancy enough? And then others are looking for facility usage or location tracing. So location tracing is understanding where people are congregating in your building, basically. So they want more of a heat map style approach where they know where they need to be cleaning their buildings nightly, more deeply than necessarily some of the areas that maybe use a little bit less. And still then there's customers who definitely also want a contact tracing solution, right? They have enough population coming back onto campus. They understand that, you know, people's memories do fade, and frankly that they're going to possibly be coming into contact with a lot of different people. You know, some of my commercial customers know that these 5 people always enter in this section of the building instead of these desks. So they're not necessarily as interested in the contact tracing portion, but they want location tracing. But in education, where people can kind of free roam around campus, we're having a lot of discussions around how can we augment that interview process. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of the announcements around these apps and the Apple and Google partnership. They're certainly helpful for the general population, but they do lack some features that many customers are looking for in a contact tracing solution. So one of the things is a lot of times they use GPS and BLE proximity detection. And proximity detection can be a little bit tricky because in a group of people, you're going to have a lot of Bluetooth devices, but it doesn't really tell you where you've come into contact with these people. It just tells you have. So the organization doesn't glean any data for, you know, efforts of cleaning and actually conducting their contact tracing. A lot of times, you know, they don't work very well indoors because the GPS part of the app doesn't necessarily pick up coordinates properly. There's a lot of different apps and they don't all necessarily share data. The big ones that we've kind of seen though, the statistics that I've seen are between 20 and 30% of users actually adopt an app. So the adoption rate is a little on the low side. But then there's also some things like if the battery runs out, is the app running? Has the user enabled the privacy settings on their phone that they need to make the app function properly? So where I think these apps are really positioned and really, really good is at the general population, you know, when you go to the grocery store or you go to Target, for instance, but not necessarily when we're bringing students back to a campus or bringing them back into a school environment. So we don't, as an organization, most schools are looking for some additional data, and these apps just really aren't positioned to provide it. So one of the things that schools pretty much have are wireless access points. So we can do contact tracing both via Wi-Fi and Bluetooth with something that you already have probably installed in your building. Now, in some cases, we may need to augment some areas of AP coverage to get better triangulation of users, but overall, most school campuses are equipped pretty heavily with access points. So you're pretty much halfway to a solution because you've already got the AP. So as we're working through what a solution here looks like, the very first thing we have to figure out as an organization is how are we going to package the solution to our end user. So are we going to use a phone-based approach where they authenticate onto our wireless network and we triangulate their position off of wireless? Are we going to have them use a device-specific wearable that may use BLE, or it could be like an Apple Watch? Or furthermore, are we going to use an app-based approach where they install an app on their phone to do contact tracing? So this is, there's some semantical differences between all three of these. So when we just join the phone to the wireless, there's no app needed, right? As long as the phone or the device is joined to the wireless, we can triangulate its position. With a wearable that's specific, possibly like a BLE token, that's a very packaged solution, has a long battery life. The person just keeps it in their pocket or wears it on a wristband or something similar to that. And they walk around campus, and that gives us their location to triangulate. And then, again, the app-based approach, you could still do a custom-based app that uses the wireless or uses BLE. But again, we have to consider the adoption rate, and is the app actually running? Is the phone actually charged? Using what you already have, right? Your existing infrastructure. So if you have wireless infrastructure already, we can triangulate the positioning as stated earlier. If we want more granular visibility into where our users are within our buildings, for efforts of cleaning and for efforts of contact tracing, it may be worthwhile to consider a Bluetooth solution, right? So all of our newer APs, the 300 and 500 series access points, they have a Bluetooth radio built in that we can use to triangulate where users are within your building by equipping them with a wearable, basically a Bluetooth tag. So those are the two considerations for infrastructure. But then, what does our accuracy need, right? So wireless is 10, 15 meter accuracy in all directions. So consider if you have a multi-story building, if you pulled out a contact tracing report that was purely based off of Wi-Fi, you're probably going to have a larger report because you have a pretty large spread of where that data kind of came from. So depending on how your facilities are laid out, your AP density, Wi-Fi may or may not be a good solution for you. Do you need contact tracing or location tracing or both, right? So that affects what decisions that you make as far as which direction you go in. For contact tracing, wireless. For location tracing, maybe wireless, but maybe more likely Bluetooth. Do you have a real-time requirement for data? So in the wireless-based solution that Aruba is providing, we're about 24 hours behind on getting that into our COVID response dashboard, right? Because we are collecting the data and then uploading it and analyzing it. So there is about a 24-hour delay there. If that's not going to meet your requirement, then maybe looking at a Bluetooth-based solution might be the right fit. And then budgetary. Do you have money allotted for contact tracing or not? And that will kind of dictate what solutions may be available to you. So I just want to quickly recap and kind of break down what the options are that we see from our vantage point here. So the first option is we just use a commercially available app like COVID Safe Paths or one of the Apple or Google tracking products. But you do have the downfalls of using apps, right? They don't necessarily provide a reportable dashboard for you. They don't necessarily give you feedback of where people were within your campus, right? They are typically proximity based. And they typically don't give you a whole bunch of data back that you can use that's actionable. But it certainly does address some of the contact tracing needs. Then we can use something that you probably already have. So if you're an existing Aruba customer, if you're an on-prem customer, you most likely have Airwave installed. There will be a patch coming out for Airwave that is going to ship data up to our cloud product, Central, to give you access to the COVID contact tracing dashboard. If you're already a Central customer using Aruba Cloud platform, then you'll already have access to this dashboard. But using wireless, like we said before, it's a 10 to 15 meter accuracy. Does not really require an app per se, just really requires that the user have wireless turned on and that they've registered on your network so you know who they are. And then if accuracy is very important and real-time locationing is very important, and understanding how your spaces are actually being used, then Bluetooth is probably your best option. When we're talking about Aruba's Bluetooth solution, we'd really be talking about using one of our tags, or tokens as I sometimes refer to them. These tokens are about the size of a US quarter, about 2 or 3 quarters in thickness. You can certainly put them in something, you know, a coin purse, a watch band, a pocket, stick them on the back of a phone. They have a pretty lengthy battery life, 3 to 4 years. And these will report basically every minute or so into a cloud-based platform called Meridian. So I'm just going to pause here for 1 second because I want to make one clear distinction, right? There's basically 3 technologies that are available to do contact tracing, right? So GPS, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. We have to have a way of triangulating a user if we want to know spatially where they are in a campus or in a classroom. So all solutions, app-based or not app-based, are typically going to rely on one or multiple modes of those technologies. And then third-party solutions, right? So typically enabled through ALE, analytics and locations engines, or using just Wi-Fi and BLE passively. There are third-party solutions out there. They're traditionally application-based, although some do offer a wearable, if that's the direction that your school would like to go in. But they typically are relying on that same infrastructure layer that we're relying up here, right? They're either relying on Wi-Fi or they're relying on BLE and maybe a little bit of GPS for when students might be off campus, but still does require typically an app to be installed on their phone. So again, adoption rates can sometimes be a little suspect there. So let me just talk a little bit about what Aruba is doing for contact tracing for customers. So we're doing Wi-Fi based contact tracing. This is going to be pretty much a no cost to users. If you're an Airwave customer or a Central customer, you're just going to be getting this capability. There'll be a patch for Airwave, as stated before, and then there'll be a trial of Aruba Central to get you into using the COVID contact tracing dashboard. But the workflow is, the user registers their device or devices, usually through ClearPass or some other Radius onboarding process. The AP is listening for those MAC addresses for those users and where they are, triangulating their positions. It's going to send that data basically into Airwave or to Central, depending on how you're installed, if you're using Central today or not. And that data will get shipped up to the cloud from Airwave, again, about once every 24 hours. We are crunching that data with AI and machine learning to kind of understand if a user has 2, 3, 4 devices, which device is the one that they're typically keeping on themselves so that we're not seeing multiple entries for the same user. So the nurse or your health officials on campus are informed of a potentially sick person. They enter in their information into the contact tracing dashboard, and it will give them a few parameters that they can customize, such as date and duration of time. And they're going to get a list of users that that person has come in contact with on campus. So this is kind of what the dashboard looks like today. Keep in mind, Wi-Fi contact tracing is more proximity based, so it's how many minutes they came into contact or within a certain area as other users are, and it gives you their dwell time, the total amount of minutes that they've been into contact with those users. This is exportable data, so you can bring it into another visualization product or bring it into Excel if you want. But this data is really useful when you're going through and conducting a contact tracing interview. So Aruba has worked with some contact tracers to kind of develop this a little bit. And if it's this user was on campus where there's 5,000 students, or this user was on campus and we've narrowed it down to these 100 students that they've possibly been in contact with, this is definitely more useful information to have at the ready. This is just another way of potentially visualizing the data. So this is just using an off-the-shelf tool, Power BI. importing the raw data from the COVID tracing dashboard and then just re-visualizing it. So option 2, as we talked about, was Meridian, or the Bluetooth-based locationing. So this is where we are issuing tags to users. Again, they just keep them on their person. We need to have 300 or 500 series access points. We can augment 200 series APs with a Bluetooth dongle. Meridian, our cloud product, determines where the tag is located, and the data gets streamed and visually represented within Meridian. This solution, incidentally, has actually been around for about 3 or 4 years. We've originally introduced it for asset tracking. So you could also augment this, if your facilities folks are having a hard time finding things like ladders around the campus or things like that. But we are using the same technology that we're using for our asset tracking to do basically this contact tracing. So again, the workflow is the user reports that they aren't feeling well or they're COVID positive. Your person in charge of this initiative looks up that user's tag and finds other tags that they may have been in close contact with. Again, the BLE solution offers a lot more fidelity. It's about 1 to 3 meters of accuracy. We can tell things like how long they've dwelled in a certain room. We can heat map out where students or tags are traveling within your facility for your cleaning folks, so they know where to focus their cleaning efforts at night or off hours. So we can glean a lot more data using BLE, and it's certainly a lot more accurate. So this is just a quick representation of kind of what a dashboard looks like. So our team would bring in your facilities maps and size them appropriately. These are then these little blue dots and these pictures. These are all different tags floating around. You could certainly add a picture in. We wouldn't really recommend putting PII into this solution. So it's best just to kind of keep a non-identifiable ID number of some kind. And then keep that PII in one of your systems that you already have. But you can see visually where different tags are located on a floor plan. This is one of the extended dashboards that we've added to augment this solution a little bit. So here we've picked a user, we've picked the amount of distance. So if that recommendation were to change, you can certainly change that here. So this is a 2 meter distance, a date range, and the amount of exposure time that we are looking for this particular user to have had. And then this will show you or generate a report that is exportable. It's also can be shown into a chart format of where these users were. You can visually replay where the user has been or walk through the facility, etc. The heat mapping portion of this just shows where you've had a lot of traffic in your facility. So this is something that, providing to your facilities folks for cleaning purposes could definitely be beneficial. So they know where to focus their deeper cleaning efforts, even on a daily basis. So again, an asset tag, it's about the size of a US quarter, 2 to 3 stacked high. This is just showing an off-the-shelf band where the asset tag was installed. Again, requires some newer access points. So 300 series APs, they are probably about 4 or 5 years old now. You should have at least those, or you'll need the Bluetooth dongle for some of the 200 series. 3 to 4 year battery. You can scale it to many thousands of assets, and it'll give you true real-time location of where users have been on your campus. It's not just proximity, right? So really here, just to kind of summarize the options, Wi-Fi based, the cost is pretty much nil if you're an Airwave or Central customer today. If you're using instant access points only without Airwave, or you're using our wireless platform without Airwave, you would need to purchase Airwave, or you would need to purchase Central, depending on how you're installed. But most customers are using Airwave or they're using Central. So there's really no additional cost outside of that. We're talking about a 15 meter accuracy. Keep in mind with wireless, that's in all directions. So in a multi-floor building, you may have some additional hits in your report that would not necessarily be there should you be using the Bluetooth. So keep that in mind, but again, it's just to facilitate doing your contact tracing interview. You can pretty much deploy it now. You probably already have Airwave deployed, and it's a cloud-based reporting dashboard, so there's nothing else for you to set up there. You don't need any additional hardware, and again, it's delivered via Airwave / Central or just Central. On the Bluetooth side of the house, right, we have purpose-built tags, 1 to 3 meters of accuracy. You do need to deploy and set up tags, so you have to have some way of assigning those tags to a user. Again, we do recommend 300 or 500 series APs. You can augment the 200 series, but keep in mind that the Bluetooth USB dongle, where it's positioned on the access point, it doesn't give you quite the fidelity in location accuracy that you'd get with a 300 or 500 series AP, where the radio has been integrated and the antennas have been tuned specifically for that AP. And the aggregation point, basically where the data is going, is into our Meridian-based location product. We've owned Meridian for quite a few years now, and have used it very successfully in multiple different venues and different customers. So just pivoting here, right? So that's the solutions that we talk about, the Wi-Fi based and the Meridian Bluetooth based solution. Those are Aruba delivered solutions, right? Those are native to our product subset. The third-party solutions, though, would kind of bolt on and be used in concert with. So we have multiple different third-party solutions today, like CXApp or IL Labs or Sky5. And different ones of these products kind of offers some different solutions that are either COVID response or COVID related, right? So for instance, Envoy it does visitor management that's kind of touchless, right? You can kind of just come in and right off your phone, get your visitor credentials and things like that. So definitely they address some different shortcomings necessarily in the marketplace. But a lot of these products have been around for a while, like Sky5 and IL Labs. They've been used for many years in retail for tracking where people are going within a store, just based off of their phone beaconing for wireless. So again, they've kind of augmented their products to be able to provide contact tracing, and they've been doing telemetry within buildings for a number of years. Again, a lot of them do not require an app to be installed. They're using APIs, and they're typically priced per AP count. These are all based off of Wi-Fi analytics, this subset of partners. So keep in mind the accuracy is going to be very similar to what you would see out of the Aruba solution, because we're using the same way of determining telemetry off of that hardware. And then the Meridian base, this is also the Bluetooth base, right? A lot of these are deployed using an app, sometimes a wearable. Notice the accuracy is a little different than our tag. So our tag has been purpose-built for asset tracking. So we have a little bit tighter accuracy than we do just using an off-the-shelf cell phone Bluetooth radio. But again, these are typically application-based. They still do run off of the Meridian platform in the background. They have a tie-in, and they may have some other augmentations that they can do, things like a daily interview process or things like that. So again, if your solution that you're looking for dictates having an application-based product, know that these are available both in Wi-Fi and in Bluetooth. And then lastly, this is more of a related item to COVID response. Really doesn't have anything to do with contact tracing per se, but we are seeing a lot of customers having some interest in basically mass thermal detection to see if users are running a temperature on their campus. So your mileage will vary depending on the manufacturer and how you install these, but suffice it to say, I have a lot of customers that are starting to talk about looking at these devices just to kind of take mass temperature reads of their student population. So with that, I'm gonna ping Eric here and see if there were any notable questions or dialogues going on while we were presenting, and see if we can answer any of those live. So Eric, if you're able to chime in here, please do.
Yeah, Tom. Actually, do you have any information about when the contact tracing in Central will be available?
So The latest that I have on that, Eric, is it's going to be in the July timeframe. Realistically, I would just level set the expectation at this point that that would be towards the end of July. We realize that many customers are waiting for this functionality, and we've been talking about it with many for a while. We are just ensuring that we have the dashboard tested and ensuring that we have all the data in there that people are looking for. But I would look for that in the month of July.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's it. There were a number of questions, but they're answered in the chat. So
great, perfect. Well, I again appreciate that. Thank you, Eric. And then really just more information, right? How can you get some more information? We have an excellent, partner. Aruba's the partner of the East, as was mentioned before. Please feel free to reach out to your account reps there, and we can certainly spin up a very specific conversation around your environment and what your goals are. But if you also want to find some more information, you can do that just by going to arubanetworks.com. You scroll about halfway down the homepage and you'll see this link there for what the new normal will look like. And this will talk about a number of different things, from the working remotely to returning to the office to long-term, what Aruba and the analysts that we have talked to kind of think is on the horizon. So I'd encourage you to reach out to your account rep or check out arubanetworks.com. And with that, I thank everyone for their time here. Again, any other questions, please let us know. And with that, I'm going to end the webinar now. Thank you.